All right, welcome back to We Talk Tech, everybody. Last episode, I hope all of you joined us as we talked about switches and some of the things you can do with switches. Today we're going to talk about how we can use those switches to access your smart devices and your computer. But to get started with, we have a special guest with us today, Chad Leaman from the Neil Squire Society. And Chad's going to introduce us to Neil Squire Society, as well as the Makers Making Change program and a device that they created called the Lipsync that helps you control your computer and your smart devices using your breath.
Chad, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Chad Leaman. I work at the Neil Squire Society. I've been at the organization for almost 20 years now, believe it or not. Over the last few years, I've been really focused on a program of ours called Makers Making Change. It's sort of a new model to try to get assistive technology to people at a lower cost, sort of using community volunteers to help fabricate assistive devices.
Chad, you've got a bunch of great stuff on the Makers Making Change website. There's a lot of devices up there. Can you tell us a little bit about what Makers Making Change is?
Makers Making Change is really looking to sort of tap into the potential of the community to help fabricate assistive devices. So Makers Making Change has a repository of AT, and it's all open source. What we mean by that is anyone can download the bill of materials, the code for a device, the 3D print files, instruction manuals, and sort of how to assemble it. So, and what we're finding is that by sort of giving it away for free actually helps get it into a lot more people's lives. There's been a bunch of things where we sort of facilitate people getting assistive technology, and then we get emails from schools in the United States that built a bunch of switches and they've gone to children's hospitals and pieces like that. So we're trying to curate and build a library of open assistive technology. Well over half it is not made by Neil Squire engineers anymore. They've been submitted by the community and by other disability rehab professionals. And then we help facilitate people sort of connecting to makers in those communities. Those can be corporations that got a day of giving that maybe want to have engineers build things. A lot of schools are participating. They have sort of STEM education as part of it. Now they're not 3D printing Yoda heads, they're 3D printing switch cases or lip sync shells. And a lot of sort of maker spaces. A lot of communities have 3D printers in libraries now, or there's these community maker spaces. They're sort of like a shared tool library. You can go there and use the tools. So we've had really great take-up from the sort of fabricator, do-it-yourself tinker community and help create devices for people in their community.
Excellent. And one of the devices that I've been using for a number of years is the Lipsync. I'm actually using it right now to operate my computer. Wondering if you can tell us a bit more about how it works and what platforms it can connect to.
Yeah, the Lipsync's an interesting story and is almost similar to the sort of origins of the Neil Squire Society, where there was a guy, Neil Squire, and he had an accident, and engineers sort of adapted switch and puff systems to control computers, and this is in the early 80s. The tools that Neil used became a commercial product called the Joust, which is still commercially available and people could buy. And then Google put out sort of an innovation challenge, looking at sort of innovations in assistive technology, or what could be sort of done, looking at sort of new innovations. So we proposed to sort of like iterate on the Joust. At this time, it wasn't mobile at all. You know, had to be plugged into the wall. And that was our pitch to Google, right, is how do you use a touchscreen device if you can't touch the screen of the device? Speech has come a long way since then, but that was the idea. So I got sort of a newer way to enable people to sort of use smartphones and smart devices. So I actually have one here behind me, kind of half shell. This is, I think, Ian's favorite color, right? So it looks like Rudolph while he uses it. But the outer shell is 3D printed, so this is just 3D printed plastic. It sort of sits on the bed. And then on the inside of it is a circuit board and the joystick components. You can put your Arduino computer on there. So, it can be built in about 2 hours by someone that knows what they're doing. We've taught people to solder, and it takes them a little bit longer. But it can now be sort of made by volunteers for about $150 to $200 worth of parts, compared to the Joust, which is $1,500 American, and goes up from there. So it's USB-A, so you can plug it right into your computer, or you can use an adapter to plug into Android, or you can put a Bluetooth chip on it and connect it via Bluetooth to any Bluetooth device, including Apple now, right? The Apple devices now have mouse support for Bluetooth, so that was a big win for us. we've done some further software updates to try to address issues around drift and to make it a little more stable. And it's now working actually as a controller for the Xbox adaptive controller as well. So we've seen a lot of people sort of take it and sort of bend it and use it for other sort of purposes beyond what we even originally anticipated with it.
That's awesome. And you mentioned there were both a USB version and a Bluetooth version. Do you find more people kind of migrate towards that Bluetooth wireless version?
We're starting to see a little bit more of that. The code we had sort of controlled on Bluetooth, just to be honest, is all open source, wasn't as reliable as, say, as the USB. We were just literally rolling out an update of software. By the time your viewers get this, there's probably time to download that update. We're just going into sort of an open beta with that now. So that there is a certain benefit to that, but there's also, as viewers probably won't have the pleasure to see, me trying to connect with Bluetooth headphones. There's another layer of like connectivity issues that can sometimes happen, right? So that sort of plug and it just works is sometimes beneficial, but in the right situation, or you're using an Apple iOS device, then you really need that Bluetooth, and it makes a lot of sense as well.
Chad, you mentioned that Neil Squire was not just so we're here in Vancouver, in BC. It's not just a local company. You mentioned makers supplying designs and making these devices throughout North America. Can you talk a little bit, and I see this on your social media all the time, about how you guys have these build-a-thons for the Lipsync, how these work, and how many you guys have built so far? It seems like there's been a lot made and distributed to the community.
Yeah, and now that question sort of has two parts, because there's the pre-COVID world and then our current COVID world, and a lot of additions are in sort of pivots is the word I'm looking for. A lot of pivots sort of happen. So, yeah, pre-COVID, what we'd have is these sort of build-a-thons. So, the way to sort of think of it is, we would come in, we'd bring the tools, the soldering irons and wire strippers, screwdrivers, all the sort of hand tools you need. Teach people solder didn't know how. And then we'd usually have like 20 or 30 people in a room, some volunteers or staff working around and trying to help assist people through it. So those build-a-thons, people work through sort of an instruction manual. Think of it like an IKEA manual, just less Allen keys, more soldering, where people sort of could build it and put it together. And we had really good success with that, especially in events where we could kind of support. Now, this was sort of our first project that actually sort of went into launching Makers Make a Change, or people want other things. Now there's a lot more projects on there that are a little bit lower bar of entry. I would say the Lipsync is something it's a larger build. There's a lot more soldering and stuff involved than some of our other projects on our site. They're not just a couple solder points. But we had a lot of success with that. We have, to the best of my knowledge, and again, the open source things happen where you don't expect, but we've helped over 1,500 Lipsyncs get out into the wild. And a lot of that was through the Google funding support, and we got funding for Government Canada sort of to build on that sort of model. People saw the Lipsync. I don't need that, but I could use a cup holder on my wheelchair or on my walker, or help with a writing aid or splint. So a lot of other sort of 3D printing things sort of grew from that. Now, since COVID, things have changed. Putting 30, 40 people in a room, a bunch of volunteers laying on the shoulder is not kosher, or things that we've done. So we've sort of stepped back from those events. We have done some online ones, and we leaned on the local makerspace here locally, where I had done 2 or 3 Lipsync builds in the past, and then not everyone that builds one perfect, so they've done some repair nights with me in the previous. So I sort of have this collection of volunteers around me that have done it a number of times. So some of their members took some kits and helped build up a bit of a stockpile for us, and repaired some other ones as well. So and it's fantastic for us, right? We have people on staff that can do it, but to have volunteers that love soldering, that like it's a hobby for them, that's what they want to do on the weekend, is sort of play and tinker in their garage. It's been really great, and it helps us keep sort of really reduce all those manufacturing costs and make sure that we're getting people what they need at a much more sort of affordable price point.
And Chad, if somebody wanted to volunteer, what's the best way to connect with you and Makers Making Change?
Yeah, volunteers play a real important role in helping sort of scale and grow the program. People can, through our website, you can click onto the form, and you can see any request that's come in. So that's where someone's gone to our website, like, oh, that's the product I need, and they can click the request, it goes to our form, volunteers can fulfill those. So that's sort of one way, and that's very much like, here's a project that's documented and easy to replicate, and people can build it. The second sort of request we get are people that's like, I need X, but X isn't on our website. So it might be a sort of more of a design challenge. That's a little bit more of an in-depth sort of volunteering piece. That sometimes is taking existing products that are on our website and modifying them, which is fine. Everything's open source. We encourage people to sort of bend the corners and make new things out of that. And then the third way, which has really helped us scale, is for the certain sort of person is to help lead a chapter in their community. And that's been both schools that want to sort of get back. We have some chapters now that are embedded in rehab centers, where they're really trying to create a local community of both people with disabilities, makers, as well as disability professionals. And we find that the best chapters and the best sort of outcomes through our model are when you have those three sort of bits. The person that needs something, the person that knows how to fabricate, but also the disability professional that has a good idea around sort of what's available, what the sort of goals are, how to structure that, other sort of environmental concerns. When those three things come together in a chapter, we see really huge impact. And we have a number of chapters in both Canada and the United States where it just really exceeded my expectation when I was like, I'm going to try to build 1,000 of these lip syncs, 5 years ago. Now we have chapters that are contributing designs to our library and, really getting things that people need in the community. So I guess the cheap plug would be go to www.makersmakingchange.com. Sign up for a volunteer. It's free to volunteer, and I will shower you with love and appreciation.
Excellent. Chad, thank you so much for your time, and I hope people watching this video will check out your website and assist, because it's such an amazing program.
Thank you very much. And if any of your community members that are watching this need help with assistive devices and it's something that's not in your guys' wheelhouse, feel free to post it to Makers Making Change, and that's what we're here for. Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys take care and stay safe out there.
Okay, so another way to navigate your computers and your phones and tablets is by voice. Voice access is on Android. Voice control is iOS. And Dragon Naturally Speaking is on Windows computers. And all of them enable you to control absolutely everything just by voice, which is pretty impressive for hands-free use.
It absolutely is, yeah. And another way is switch control. So using the switches we talked about last episode, and using a device like the Komodo Open Labs Tekla or the Hook Plus from AbleNet, being able to access your Android or iPhone or iPad, whatever tablet or smartphone you're using those switches.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about any of them, please check out our website and contact us, and we'll walk you through how to set it up on your devices and give you a little demo on how it works.
Yeah, make sure to join us next time. We're going to take this information and tell you how to use your tablets, your computers, and other devices to then control your smart home environment.
And as always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.